So you get a script. Do you read it immediately?
Yeah, because it came from him.
Again, kind of listen more and just react more. And you know, that's not, you can't always do that, but you work with somebody like Paul Thomas Anderson, it really gives you that opportunity. And so it's just something that I've been trying to do more.
I'm not hanging out with Paul because he's Paul. You know, I'm not hanging out with Paul because he's this great film director. Paul's not hanging out with me because he respects his actor. You know, we met that way, but we're not hanging out with each other anymore because of that. It's like, I hope and will work with him again. I definitely will, but our friendship comes first.
Tacozilla here, the Vanilla Gorilla, and this is a Paul Thomas Anderson ranked video. I just watched through all of his movies, all 9 of them. I find him to be one of the best directors of all time. I have a list that I've been kind of accumulating where I'm ranking all the directors I've ever seen once I've seen 5 of their movies, and Paul Thomas Anderson has 9 himself and has gotten himself into the top 15 of this list. I currently have him at number 12 with an overall rating at a 4.00 average, which according to my scale means, you know, on average the movies that you see from PTA are going to be great. And I do find that to be really true. He is very consistent. I haven't rated anything that he has done below a 3.5, and I think you know, for a lot of directors that's hard to accomplish. But getting right into the gist of it, at number 9 I have Hard 8.
And this is the last time I'll ask. You want my help?
I'll fuck you up if you fuck with me. I know 3 types of karate, okay? Jiu-jitsu, Aikido, and regular karate.
Okay. Which is the first film that Paul Thomas Anderson did, and I think it sets the table quite well for what he is capable of. For a debut, I think it was really, really solid. Obviously, it didn't hit the heights of some of those directors who come out of the gate just absolutely swinging and have one of the great debuts that is just like iconic right off the bat. But I must say it shows what he is capable of right out of the gate. And if you were to start watching Paul Thomas Anderson, let's say you stumbled upon this video and you're not sure where to start, I think this is as good a choice as any. And I said this in my other PTA video, but it's going to give you a taste of what he brings to the table. He's really great at throwing in cameos where, you know, side characters are able to shine through. That's something that I've consistently seen through all of his films. Great example, Philip Seymour Hoffman, small part, but he's able to kind of steal the show in doing so. And then all of his lead characters, Philip Baker Hall, John C. Reilly, Gwyneth Paltrow, all do a phenomenal job, and Samuel L. Jackson is absolutely great in this as well. I give it a 3.5 out of 5 and is ranked number 9 on my list. Up next, we have Inherent Vice.
There was a time in this country's history when peace, love, and happiness were reasons for living. When the only thing a groovy cat and his foxy lady needed to keep them humming was a reliable supply of dope and a late-night slice.
And I think this is stylistically a really interesting movie that Paul Thomas Anderson did. I think it fell a little bit flat in terms of what it could have been. It was certainly a film that, to me, feels very inspired by the likes of like a Big Lebowski or The Long Goodbye. It's actually kind of a mixture of the two because it takes a character like the Big Lebowski, albeit more capable a hero, and puts him in the time period of The Long Goodbye. And obviously, well, not obviously, for those of you who don't know, this is based on an author who I believe his last name is Pynchon, who did a Inherent Vice novel in 2009. So Paul Thomas Anderson obviously drew upon that source material with this movie, and from what I heard, Pynchon, the author, is kind of hard to adapt, period. And that might be seen here. Nonetheless, it was very good. It was interesting. If you enjoy that kind of that counterculture hippie movement in the 1970s, I think you'll really enjoy this movie, maybe a little bit more so than me. And I have an affinity for that, but it was just kind of hard for me to fully understand that time period because, you know, all I know from it is really from media. Nonetheless, well done, very good, and 8th on my list. If you're hearing that in the background, that is me talking on the Talk of Movie Talks podcast. And I'm not just listening to myself because I'm a narcissist, but because I actually enjoy the content that we make. And I think you will too. I hope that you subscribe to the channel if you like this video. And let's get back to the action.
I have never been to the pyramids. Have you? No. And yet we know that they are there. Because learned men have told us so. May I ask, what is your name?
John Moore.
Mr. Moore, if I may. Is there something frightening to you about the cause's travels into the past?
The next one, and I have to preface this again like I did in my last Paul Thomas Anderson and Philip Seymour Hoffman movies ranked video, I feel like I was a bit low on this. I didn't rate it immediately after watching it. I didn't even have a Letterboxd profile at all at that time. Didn't even know that the site existed. So this is kind of based on memory. But I can say, despite the fact that I rated this a 3.5, the same as Inherent Vice and the same as Hard 8, this is definitely above those two. And quite frankly, could easily be a lot of people's favorites among Paul Thomas Anderson. So take this rating with a grain of salt, but take what I'm about to say at face value. And that is, this is a really interesting movie with some of the strongest performances that you're going to find in a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. I think Daniel Day-Lewis's performances are some of the only ones that can really hold a candle to what Joaquin Phoenix and Philip Seymour Hoffman do in this movie. It's a movie that is very much inspired by Scientology and a kind of the typical person who can fall into a religion like that, where they're kind of desperate for meaning in their life and, you know, suffer from being in a war and have addictions. And Joaquin Phoenix nails that role, but Philip Seymour Hoffman as someone who is duplicitous but tries to put on a front as like a very intelligent and kind of knows more than other people type of charismatic character, absolutely nails his performance. So I have this ranked as the number 7 movie from Paul Thomas Anderson, but again, I could be a little bit low on this, and there's a great argument to be made that this is possibly better than even the next 3 that I'm going to go over, but I do plan to rewatch this and possibly make a follow-up video in the future if that is the case. But the next movie that I have, Licorice Pizza.
I'm gonna choke your brother. I kept it inside, but what I wanted to say was, no, I'm gonna choke you.
Oh yeah?
I would have said it. I was trying to stay cool though. I was trying to stay.
This one came out in 2021, and when I look at the average rating, I think it's, you know, obviously there's going to be some people who maybe disagree with my rating, but I gave it a 4 out of 5, and these next 3 all are in that category where I think these movies are great, to put it simply. And you have 2 lead characters who are a little bit younger, but I think really hold up their end of the bargain, and I think that speaks to Paul Thomas Anderson's strengths as a director to be able to get the most out of his actors. And Philip Seymour Hoffman's child, Cooper Hoffman, is in this one. He does a tremendous job. But also the side characters, which is something that PTA is able to do again and again and again, but they make a great impact and are able to kind of steal the show with their performances. And I'm talking specifically about Sean Penn and Bradley Cooper. I actually think Bradley Cooper was able to steal the show the most, and Sean Penn was a welcome addition for sure. I really like the story. It took me a little bit to get on board with the movie, actually, because Paul Thomas Anderson, he has a kind of a way to do these cold opens, and sometimes they hook you in, and this time it didn't quite hook me in. It actually took a little bit for me to really dive into this story, but I love the way he was able to do the romance in Licorice Pizza to where it didn't suffer from the cliche pitfalls that oftentimes rub me the wrong way with romance movies. I have to say, I think PTA did it really well, and I mean, this is maybe one of my favorite romance movies, to be honest. But yeah, a Bronze Star goes to Bradley Cooper because minute for minute, his impact was felt the most. So with what little time he had, he certainly made the biggest impact, and I really enjoyed this movie. Again, 4 out of 5, and this is 6 out of 9 for Paul Thomas Anderson movies. And the next one that we're going to talk about is one that is pretty famous for what it was able to do, and of course I'm talking about PunchDrunk Love.
What the fuck is your problem? Fucking retard, Barry! God damn it!
Can you help me?
Barry, I'm a dentist. What kind of help do you think I can give you?
I sometimes cry a lot for no reason.
I think the reason that this is famous is because this was the first movie to take Adam Sandler and just put him in a role in which he was able to fully show his skills as a dramatic actor, and I think it blew a lot of people away. And obviously Uncut Gems was able to do something relatively similar to that, but this was the OG, and we could debate which performance was better between his performance in Uncut Gems and PunchDrunk Love, but this movie is up there with one of the funniest Paul Thomas Anderson movies, in my opinion at least. So it was able to take a side of Adam Sandler that we had really never seen up until that point, and it just worked perfectly with this script and the character specifically. I think it blew a lot of people's minds, mine included, and I had watched Uncut Gems prior to PunchDrunk Love, so I knew that Adam Sandler had this greatness in him. And I still watched this, and I was kind of shocked to see him portray the type of character that he did. On top of that, Philip Seymour Hoffman had, it's arguable, for his best performance in a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. I think The Master, he did a tremendous job, but for the character he played in PunchDrunk Love, it was just great to kind of counteract the character that Adam Sandler did. And anytime they were kind of sharing the screen or going back and forth, it made for cinematic gold. So I think this is a great movie as well. A 4 out of 5. It ranks 5th on our list, and up next is Magnolia.
Respect the cock. And tame the cunt.
This one could be a little bit low, especially when you look at the average rating. And I had kind of gotten some comments on my Paul Thomas Anderson and Philip Seymour Hoffman projects ranked video that maybe the one I had seen, the audio wasn't quite what it is for what a lot of other people had seen. A lot of times the music would drown out the audio, and that wasn't the case for the majority of people who saw this movie, so it could have been my TV, the version I watched, etc., etc. But what I do know for sure is that this is one of the more, or most, I should say, impressive versions of how a director and screenwriter is able to take multiple stories and kind of tie them together into something interesting. Tom Cruise does a tremendous job in this. He was the standout as far as I'm concerned and did a tremendous job. But you have just a cast full of great actors who all held their weight and did a tremendous job. So you have great performances, great to very good performances, and a really solid script. Paul Thomas Anderson really nailed it with this one. And this is a lot of people's, I think, favorite movies, are kind of the unheralded hero amongst Paul Thomas Anderson's filmography. I'm definitely a fan. That's why it's top half for me. But I think there are some films to come that even upon a rewatch with a cleaner version of the movie, I'm not sure that this movie could top. And those movies, of course, coming in at number 3, we have Phantom Thread.
I'd like to take your temperature.
There's a strange boy in the room. Can you get him out, please?
I admit I do look young, but
Fuck off.
Please, just let him examine you.
Yes, fuck off.
I think this is clear. He wants you to fuck off.
Now, this might be the pretentious movie critic in me coming out. I watched this as I was really just starting into my film buff journey, for lack of a better term. It's not going to be for everyone. I know that for a fact. It might be dry for some people, but the chemistry between Daniel Day-Lewis and Vicky Krieps is amazing. I don't think there's any other word for it. And Daniel Day-Lewis, it's a more subtle role. It's a role with much more nuance. It's not as explosive as he is in There Will Be Blood, but it's a really, really great performance. And it's a script that gets deep into the nuances of the subject material it's touching upon, and also the relationship of someone who is a master at their craft and who is absolutely obsessed with what they're doing. And I think people who are really deeply into sports can kind of understand or have an idea of what type of person Daniel Day-Lewis is trying to portray. If you think of like a Michael Jordan-esque person, you understand, especially after watching his documentary, what type of person Daniel Day-Lewis is exploring. It's someone who it's deep within their psyche that this is their life. And how that is explored in this movie, I think, is absolutely genius. And I would give it a try. If you really like films, which if you're watching this video, I'd assume you are, give it a try. I don't think it's going to be for everyone, but I think there's beauty to be found in this movie. And I quite honestly, I think it's a masterpiece because of that. And I think based on the average rating, a lot of people feel the exact same way. And I hope that if you haven't seen this rating or, this explanation encourages you to do so. Now we're getting to the top 2 films, and I got number 2, Boogie Nights.
Give me this shit. Oh!
And it's crazy to think that this was Paul Thomas Anderson's second film, because he was able to attract such a great cast for this one. I think it's arguably Mark Wahlberg's best performance as an actor, and I said this in the Philip Seymour Hoffman PTA ranked video. I think it's this and The Departed are the ones that really blew me away as far as what Mark Wahlberg was able to bring to the table as an actor. But then you have Philip Seymour Hoffman playing a really small role and just kind of stealing the show. One of the most memorable scenes is the scene with Philip Seymour Hoffman and Mark Wahlberg in it. And I think that speaks volumes as to what Paul Thomas Anderson is able to do and why he's been able to attract the talent that he has with his scripts, because it doesn't matter if you're the lead or you're a small role, you can make an impact and people are going to remember you if you are able to nail the performance that he gives you or the role that he gives you. And if you're an actor and you don't have to put as much time into the role and you see that Paul Thomas Anderson has a role that he would potentially want you to do, that's all you need. That's the sales pitch now. He has become that type of director now in Hollywood, and pretty much everyone in this film brings it. It's another kind of PTA callback or hallmark in that there's kind of multiple storylines brewing that are all attached by the overarching or connecting theme of this movie, and it's about how it's like the death of an industry, and that industry being the pornographic industry. So I think it has a ton of hooks to get people interested in watching this film, and I think it's super, super well done, masterfully done. In fact, I think it's a masterpiece. It's a 4.5 out of 5 for me, and that leaves just one movie left from Paul Thomas Anderson, and that is There Will Be Blood.
Central Church of the Third Revelation is your spiritual guide. Get out of here! Get out of here! Get out of this! Do you accept Jesus Christ as your Savior?
Yes, I do.
I think There Will Be Blood is Paul Thomas Anderson and Daniel Day-Lewis at their very best. It is explosive, and it is as raw as it gets, or just as cutting edge as it gets. And Daniel Day-Lewis's performance, Paul Dano's performance as well, are just some of the best performances you're going to see on screen, period. Obviously, people who have watched a lot of DDL know he's one of the greats, and with one of the great actor directors behind the screen and behind the pen, I mean, you're gonna get magic, and that is exactly what we got with this. And Paul Dano is one of those actors in Hollywood now with whom I have a great affinity for. I think he is going to do great things moving forward and has already done a lot of great things, but he's kind of primed, where he's at in Hollywood and with his age and so on and so forth, that he's going to do a lot more great projects and roles before all is said and done. But this is a character that is iconic. And as much as I like all the other movies, this one is far and away my favorite so far, to where I don't think there's even an argument as far as I'm concerned for what the best Paul Thomas Anderson film is. For me, it's pretty much always going to be There Will Be Blood, because this is as good as PTA gets. And maybe the only thing that's arguable is my current rating, because I have it sitting at a 4.5 out of 5. And I think it's a film, despite the fact that I remember it pretty well, I think it's going to increase in value upon a rewatch and could very easily go into the I love this film. Because just talking about it now, there's definitely something in there that speaks to me with this film. But with all that being said, I hope you liked the video. If you did, like the video, subscribe to my channel, because I'm going to be doing a lot more videos like this. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will catch you on the Flippity Flip. Bye, y'all.
Catch you on the flippity flip. Catch you guys on the flippity flip. Flippity flip. Flippity flip. Really? Okay. See you guys.